Hello everyone. Thank you for joining Innovigilance and Direct's course for our eighth webinar. So thank you. Today we will talk about what it takes to write, create, and maintain SOPs in drug safety and pharmacovigilance. So thank you for joining us and stay with us. Thank you for joining again. Thanks for our students, our followers, for Drug Safety and Pharmacovigilance and Innovigilance International Academy. So as you may know, today we will talk about quality documents, about SOPs, something which is very important in our field in drug safety and pharmacovigilance. So let me introduce myself before, for those that did not know me yet. So I'm Omar Aimer. I'm a pharmacovigilance and drug safety specialist with PharmD by pharmacist by training, based in Greater Montreal in Quebec, Canada. So with my background, I graduated from my own country, from the University of Oran in Algeria, North Africa, a wonderful country, and also earned a PhD in pharmacology from the University of Algiers. Then I moved to France, in Europe, in Paris exactly, with the Master Science in Industrial Pharmacy and another Master Science in Drug Safety and Pharmacovigilance from the University of Paris-Descartes in 2015. For my professional career, I was a lecturer on pharmacology in the University of Oran and the University of Algiers, and the pharmacy director for pharmaceutical product laboratory in quality control. I moved after to France, in Paris, when I worked as a pharmacovigilance pharmacist in at the Greater Paris hospitals, university hospitals, and worked as well as a pharmacovigilance and drug safety and device safety pharmacist and then I decided to move to Quebec. It's just a wonderful province in Canada with a French-speaking, bilingual French and English. When I joined big pharmaceutical companies as pharmacovigilance and drug and device safety specialist, I also am usually a speaker and chair of roundtables at the World Drug Safety Congress in North America and Europe as well. There's two events with the World Drug Safety Congress will be held in Europe and in the US next month. So stay tuned. I'm also author for articles and about the artificial intelligence impact on pharmacovigilance. I'm also ISOP member, or the International Society of Pharmacovigilance member within the North American chapter, where I am an executive committee member. I got my certification for improving global health, focusing on safety and quality at Harvard University in 2020. And of course, I'm involved to provide the course of Innovigilance International Academy, the Drug Safety and Pharmacovigilance certification. This is me, but today we have a wonderful and beautiful lady, but also highly experienced professional in drug safety and pharmacovigilance. My guest today is Erika Barbarosi. She has a bachelor and master science in biology with a master science in pharmaceutical medicine. She is also QMS, and lead auditor. And she's a global head of pharmacovigilance at Gensnor. So let me also introduce her with her wonderful and wow biography. Erika graduated with a master's degree in biology in the research sector in 2015 in Hungary. She started her career in pharmacovigilance shortly after graduating. Initially, Erika worked with PV, with pharmacovigilance service providers such as TCS and Quantiles EMS, as a PV associate, PV officer, and operations specialist on projects such Bayer, PTC, etc. In 2018, she joined Sanofi, where she was already responsible for the management of all PV data, including the PV inbox, individual, including tracking and follow-ups, individual and aggregate reports, SUSAR management, safety agreements, local signal detection, and literature monitoring. She did everything. Reconciliation, quality checks, and local risk management and compliance activities. In 2019, Erika was awarded her second master's degree in pharmaceutical medicine from Trinity College in Ireland. She joined Ayrton Sanders as a deputy QPPV, or qualified person in pharmacovigilance, for 6 months, then promoted to a EU or European QPPV. She was in charge of all aspects of PV activities and followed applicable regulations, guidelines, and industry best practices. She acted as the single point of contact for PV on a 24-hour basis in the European area for competent authorities for PV-related matters, maintained an overview of the PV profiles of the company medicinal products and any emerging safety concerns, and maintained oversight of the PV systems and its performance. It's not finished yet. So at the end of 2020, Erika joined Janssen R Plus as EU or European and European area QPPV, and serving as an EU and UK QPPV, as we are aware about the Brexit, head of pharmacovigilance and certified lead pharmaceutical auditor. Erika is generous as she is also a member of the ISOP. We are fellow members in ISOP, which is the International Society of Pharmacovigilance, of TOPRA, the Organization for Professionals in Regulatory Affairs, and PIPA, the Pharmaceutical Information and Pharmacovigilance Association based in UK. Thank you, Erika, for accepting our invitation and for being here to share your experience and knowledge.
Thank you so much, Omar, the kind words, and a huge thank you for inviting me. It was such a pleasure and a really big surprise. So I'm really happy to be here with you and with our audience. So I really hope we will have fun and learn and share some ideas, experience. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, of course that I searched and I didn't find someone more with more experienced and with this knowledge about audits and about SOPs. We already met in different events and talking about the sharing and talking about those specific topics. So yeah, we both find this title, this topic very interesting, and that can help a lot of colleagues and connections in that field. So yeah, we're talking about SOPs, standard operating procedures, about quality documents. So I have some question for you. like as usual for my guests, and of course that we will also have questions from the audience. I will first with my questions. I prepared some questions for you, also to have more to see more and more clearly about those SOPs and quality documents. The first question is: could you provide a definition of quality documents and their objectives?
Yes. So the thing is that I would go and a little bit, touch base on ISO, because as you mentioned, I am a qualified auditor, QMS auditor, and a qualified lead auditor, and that has a bit of a touch base on the ISO standards, because basically based on that we build everything, all our quality system, and the principles are the same. You just a little bit tweak and twist here and there where you need it, to shape it for the industry and for our regulations and legislations out there. So when I'm saying touching that ISO, I would refer to the basically the documented information. So ISO mentions such a notion like documented information, which would cover all the procedures, processes, reports, every type and bit of information. They would group it, which controls and describes the quality management system. So I would imagine this description a little bit, pulling here and there the bits and pieces, and call it as the documented information, all collected, which describes the QMS system, how it functions, and how efficient it is. Because that's also important to document how you measure that your QMS system is efficient indeed. Because if it's not, then you are going off the track. And we auditors don't necessarily like to see that we are putting then people back to the right direction there, during an audit. So yeah, this is how I can imagine, and how I imagine this to describe the quality documentation. Now, as I mentioned, because it's a really big bucket, you have several other drops to fill up that pocket, and there are bigger drops and there are like smaller drops, and you name it a little bit differently, but it all serves the great purpose of the quality management system. I don't know how you find it till now, and whether I lost you at any point or not, whether you agree with me.
Yeah, 100%. As we are daily, we are also going back to those SOPs, those quality. There's the quality documents that are a very important document and tool within our daily basis, within our work, day-to-day work and activities. So thank you. Yeah, I see clear more. I think that the audience as well. I have other questions. So
I'm bracing myself.
So the next one is, what are QD types or quality document types, and what differentiates them? I mean, like, for example, policies versus SOPs versus WINS or work instructions. So what is the different? What are the different documents, quality documents, and what differentiates them? Yeah, between those example and others.
I think you already gave the hint there. So there are three major types of documentation within the quality system, which fills up the bucket, and that big drop would be the policy. And basically the policy serves, how I could describe it is, it's a definitive statement, by senior management, which indicates the intention and the direction the company follows and goes, and also within those policies, basically, you are stating how you're planning to and how you're actually trying to implement all the regulations and directives, all the statutories, so your company is compliant. So this is how I would define the policy. It sets out the principle, the scene, the scenery, how the story starts. And then you have a smaller drop in that big drop. That would be the SOPs, the standard operating procedures. So basically, the policy leads, sets the scenario, and the SOP basically is I would say, the heart of it. I mean, the policy governs and the SOP describes it and goes into details, because you have to mention the standard operating procedures purpose. That's really important. What is the purpose of that SOP? Because it can be one SOP, but it can be many SOPs, which would take a bit of the policy and describe it further, how you are, going to the policy's direction, how you are trying to be compliant with that aspect, what the policy describes. So one important pillar of an SOP, the purpose, and then the scope, which is again really important, because you have to define what is in scope and what is out of scope. So the SOP would not describe those which is excluded. It's not in scope. Then it would also rigorously set responsibilities as well. When you have an SOP, it's a key aspect that reading the SOP, you would know which department is involved in that certain process, who is responsible for which activities. Because if you do not state it, then it will become a little bit of a mishmash. It can become a bit crazy in the house, that everyone would point to someone else. Okay, it's your responsibility. No, it's your responsibility. So you have to be really clear about it, which department and which job position is responsible for what type of an activity within that big process. Then again, what is also really important in regards to SOPs is the version control. So it should be version controlled, and usually the quality department takes care of it, looks after it, because it's not enough just to draft an SOP and having it there, but basically it has to be maintained. It has to be up to date. It cannot describe a process which you followed, let's say, 5 years ago, and now you have a completely separate software you are utilizing. You have a complete different approach what you utilize. Those SOPs have to be up to date and describing the current process. That's also a really key aspect of it. Therefore, you have to basically review those SOPs on a regular basis. So there are some companies which set out, let's say, every year. I've seen that. They like to review their processes every year. It's usually those are the smaller companies. They can do it. They don't necessarily have that many procedures in place. So it's feasible for them. But there are other companies which would actually only review it every 2 years or 3 years. But it's not recommended to leave it more than 3 years. Because as you know, in our field, it's evolving. It's continuously evolving. We are coming up with more rigorous legislation. It changes because we have to also adapt it to different scenarios. What we might wrote about it, let's say 10 years ago or maybe 20 years ago, it's not necessarily applicable, you cannot necessarily apply, because also our medicinal products are evolving, our development. There are a lot more different type of medicinal products, but we are able to produce it. So yeah, it's a really interesting area. I personally, I must admit, I really like to work with SOPs and see how they evolve and what's included, and how other companies are taking their approach to tackle the same problem. Because another really important aspect is that SOPs are company specific, and a lot of time medicinal product specific as well. So it follows the product portfolio, what you have. Most likely you will not necessarily follow the same direction with a generic product portfolio than what you would do with an advanced therapy product portfolio. So there are differences. It has to be company and product specific, because you have many ways, to reach from A to B. You can take a straight road, you can have a zigzag. So it can differ how you reach from one point to another, but the goal is to reach to that point B, and basically that's the goal, the patient safety. And if you can ensure it with your SOP, and it's robust enough and rigorous enough, then you are all good. You might have a completely different approach than, let's say, company B, which is perfectly fine. It's an everyday thing. No one should be afraid just because their SOP differs from another company that they are not on the right track.
Yeah. So it's 100%, and I like when you talk about responsibility, about updates, about the regulation who is evolving, the difference also, and the impact of the product portfolio, the company culture as well, and the policy. So I see more and more clear now. Of course, that when we join a company and when we start a new role, that we are required, before doing anything else, to read the SOPs and to understand those SOPs. It's part of the learning, and the learning is part of the quality as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if I may take another 2 minutes here on the stage, because I just wanted to mention with that SOP and what you were saying with the training, that the third really important aspect is the working instruction, what you mentioned, the wins. And basically those are the step-by-step guides, how you are performing a bite, of that process, if not the whole process, with screenshots and everything. So it's kind of I have a colleague who likes to call it dummy proof. So she knows which step follows which step. It's circled, that she needs to click there, which works pretty fine, because in this way, and you can learn the whole process. And I think that also is a great part of the training, when you actually see those screenshots there and how the whole process is built like a house up, and which stairs you have to take to get to room A or to room B. So yeah, I really do believe that training is also essential, not just to have all those piles of documents, mountains of documents being there, but actually the people getting trained on it.
Good, perfect. And it's not my third question, but I have, when you are explaining more, I have a question that pop up, and about what you think about. We see sometimes we have quality documents, and we have something like called job aid, and it's not indexed. It not when you talk about screenshots, just to help colleagues to figure out and to follow some tasks. So what do you think of job aids?
We like to call them cheat sheets.
Okay.
So I think it's basically a company nomenclature, how you like to call it. Someone says job aid. We like to call it cheat sheet, or I've also heard something like creep sheet.
Okay.
So it I think it runs. Um, I think it is really important to have it, but it is also important to know when it should be updated, because usually these kind of documents are out of the QMS system.
Yes.
So they are not controlled version. You cannot go back. You cannot, that it doesn't have that strict control. What other documents are following. So it's really handy. I like it, but when we implement these type of cheat sheets for different procedures, logins, whatever, I always try to highlight to the people, don't forget this might change. So
Yeah.
just keep in mind to go back and look at the source, the regulation, the manual, whatever is applicable for that process. For example, for user vigilance, we use a software called Vigilance. It is maintained by EMA, the European Medicines Agency. So they tend to update this and that, and sometimes the manual gets updated as well. So when you have your cheat sheet, you should always go back and see, okay, is the process what I'm handling changed? Should I add something? Should I take out something from
Yeah.
that cheat sheet? But yeah, I like them. I like them because it's more of the hand, the hand on the job.
Yeah, of course, it's really really helpful. But yeah, they might be, they should be updated and they should be reviewed, and the version not controlled I'm talking under your review, right? So yeah, they should be updated. They should be also the version controlled as well. Uh, let's see with the third question I have for you. What quality document, what SOPs come first in PV and drug safety?
That's a really good question, because I've seen a good couple of approaches. It also depends on the quality. So I tend to believe it's a bit subjective what the senior management of that company deems absolute priority to put in place. Because first, if you have the policies in place, that's really good. As I mentioned, it sets the scenario, and then you can start to add the colors here and there. And I would say, and that's my subjective opinion, so I would really like to highlight, it's my subjective opinion, that if you have your processes covering the key functional areas such as case processing, signal management, risk management, and such, and so forth, because there are also some key aspects which exist in the EU but does not necessarily exist in the US, such as pharmacovigilance system master file with the EU-based QPPV. So if you fulfill those critical requirements first, then I think you are already on the good track. And then you can, add the smaller color to the picture here and there, what you miss. Because if you cover the critical aspect of pharmacovigilance, then you can be sure that patient safety is covered. And that's the ultimate goal, patient safety. So if you miss out on a critical process and you are not sure how to handle it, I think it sounds a bit harsh, but at the end of the day, there is truth in it, that you put the patient in danger because you might miss to detect something really important. So this is how I view it. As I said, it's a personal opinion. So if Omar, I give you the stage. You can say your opinion on it because I'm really interested to see and hear others' view on this as well.
Yeah, I think that yeah, you're right. I believe that the policies and then the SOPs, then there's of course it differs. There's difference also about, as you mentioned before, from the company to another. Also, there's difference in difference level. The CROs, the pharmaceutical companies, biotechs. There's a lot of variation, I think. But yeah, let's say at 95%, I agree with you.
I'm wondering about the F5.
Yeah, as you know, as you may know, as professionals in drug safety and pharmacovigilance, we may have other opinions as well. When you talk about the causality, when you talk about listedness, or yeah,
Yeah.
different activities. So yeah, I think that, but you covered the most of the information that I I was yeah, waiting for.
I would give a shout out to our audience if anyone is really interested in that 5%, because I definitely am, can catch up with Omar next month in the Drug Safety World Conference in Amsterdam.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Let's jump to the, because we have some questions on the comments from the audience. Uh, my fourth question is how what triggers the creation, and I think that you mentioned some of some points in your first question, but let's go deeper and deeper in depth. What triggers the creation and the update of SOPs, or what is the mean frequency of the updates and the creation and the deletion of those documents?
Yeah, actually, now I can recall that I touched base on it. So, the creation part. Well, if you do not have the process, you should have the process. That's one of the biggest trigger, and I think one of the most simple trigger. If you do not have it, you should have it. So it's really important for every companies, especially the who are transiting and coming from only development and research. So I had a couple of clients. I used to work with some clients. They were like a transitioning company. Initially, they were on research and development of the drug, and then after a good handful of years, they reached the market authorization approval, and then they had to start to think about, okay, pharmacovigilance kicks in like really harshly. Now we need to set the scene for it, and they have to do kind of a gap analysis to realize what they need to have within their system, what type of SOPs beside the policies they would need, and what type of working instruction they would need to actually be able to conduct pharmacovigilance robustly, because that's also, I think, a key word for pharmacovigilance. It should be robust. So yeah, if you don't have it, and you should have it, that's a trigger to create it. Then other thing what can trigger creation is obviously an audit. So if we are coming into your house, sorry, as auditors, and we basically do the gap analysis for you, then the company should act on it, because there is obviously a reason why you have competent authority audits, because they are coming in, they are telling you, yeah, your system is okay, but here and there you have some holes, you have to plug it in. Maybe you missed some procedures, you should put in place. Or let's say that your people not necessarily fully understand, because it's a complex process, so you should break it down, you should put some wins into place. for them to make it more dynamic, more easy. You have self-inspection requirements as well, so it's not just the competent authority auditors, but such as myself coming into your house saying that, okay, you have a really nice set of processes, you're doing great, but here and there we can do better because you might miss a process or two, which is not a really. I tend to see that there are some companies which, when they go through these type of audits and someone points out that you should have a process on this one or that one, thank God it does not affect, critical aspect, but they got so afraid that they have to, because if it's something smaller, and this is why I like to use it smaller, because you still should have process, but not on the critical aspect, you are not missing out, then you are still good and you can develop that process. Maybe you are already doing that process, you just did not formalize it. I've also seen it that I've interviewed a couple of people there. They describe what they are doing, not necessarily everything, but only half of it was in a process format, described in an SOP. They did it. They just needed to formalize the other half. So basically, implementing another SOP as a sequential from the first one to a second one, or update it and create a really long one. So that can also serve as a trigger. Regarding the maintenance, as I mentioned, you can do 1, 2, 3 years. It all depends on the company, your resources, how you see. And when I'm saying how you see, I'm referring mainly here to senior management, how they see the company and how quickly you are growing. The growth also can be a trigger of implementing new processes, but also can be a trigger to more regularly review your processes, how quickly you are developing and growing. So these were the things what I would say in regards to the creation and maintenance of the procedure documents there. Any additional extra thoughts I might miss on? Most certainly I missed on. And Omar, you can add your thoughts here too.
Yeah. As you mentioned that the company growth, the new processes, there's maintaining also with the new regulation and the updates when there's new guidance released by the regulatory authority. Of course, that we need to maintain, to update those quality documents with the new resources, with the new references as well. So I think that, not I think, but I'm pretty sure that it's continuous work to maintain, to create, to update, and sometimes also to delete some documents as well.
If it becomes obsolete.
Yeah.
And another really important thing, I've seen it in a couple of companies, I must admit, and I thought to share. You just reminded me, scratch my little brain, that there are systems. We should really pay attention not to overburden the system. So there can be this effect. I've met with this scenario where the company puts so many policies and SOPs and wins in place that cross-referring, you had like almost a full page of cross-references just to internal processes. Because another really important element is, as Omar, you pointed out really correctly, that you are making statutory references as well, that you looked into those regulations, directives, whatever guidelines, and you're following them, and your processes are derived from it. But you also should cross-reference to your other SOPs, because they are kind of interconnected and they are meet at one point. So you should list their forms, templates, these type of things there. And this client system was just so heavily overburdened that when I did a gap analysis, half of the procedures I just wiped it off because they did not need it, or it could have been incorporated, and making a bigger process, I mean, like a longer procedural documents. And yeah, so I do believe that it's also essential to know that your system is not overburdened, because then you are ending up being not complying to one of your procedures, if not at least 3-4 procedures there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Thank you very much for those inputs. And as I mentioned, always, I really learn more and more from my guests, and I guess also the audience as well. The last question, and I see, as I mentioned, also questions coming from the audience. My last question is, as a lead auditor, what are the usual findings, or what are findings you usually came or come across with the real examples? Of course, that we don't mention the clients or the companies, but we are learning him from to learn from more from your experience.
So I should give away some of my secrets. So during my auditor career, what I've picked up on is that companies don't necessarily like to put in place business continuity plan. They have a really, let's say, policy type of, gives a vague overview of something, but it does not touch pharmacovigilance at all. And you know that if something happens, such as like COVID hit the world, you should have a business continuity plan, SOP, in place, and you should know what are the steps, what processes you are following. And yeah, you actually should regularly test it. That's one of the thing what I find that it can be regularly missing. The other SOP type from which companies really like to omit is reconciliation. Either they do it, as I mentioned, unknowingly doing it, but it's not documented, or they literally don't consider it, and that's the bigger issue, because you should. The other things within SOPs, what I find pretty often, is that they don't necessarily describe the roles and responsibilities. So they say that there is a step, but who is responsible for that step? They don't mention it. So basically, the cross-departmental relationship, for example, is not necessarily described in the SOP when it's clearly a joint effort. And the timelines. Yeah, that's also something which I do often pick up. They don't clarify the timelines. So when you have a process in place and, for example, you're just drafting aggregate data, you should define the timelines from, how many days or weeks, or however you like to have it, hours maybe, you leave for one step of the process. For example, for drafting, for QCing, for QPPV review, for medical review, etc. They just don't mention it, and then it can lead to non-compliance, because everyone will point finger to someone else. You didn't give me enough time. No, you didn't give me enough time. So this is why it's really important to also keep your house under control, setting these timeline rules there. So yeah, I think these are the two main things which I'm picking on a regular basis: timelines and responsibilities. They do not clarify it, however they should, because then everyone will run around like a headless chicken. And that's not good for the company.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, you mentioned also a very important thing that about the business continuity plan and how to to process the safety and how to handle the safety information when there's different scenario when we trigger the business continuity plan. Then of course that pharmacovigilance should be 100% be part of this plan. And we lived that, as you mentioned, also last year within the when the COVID lockdown and the pandemic hit the world as well. So thank you for all those insightful inputs. Let's see now with questions from the audience. We
Can I
have yeah,
Sorry,
go ahead.
just to interrupt. My bad. My apologies. Just one extra important
Yes,
information came
of
to my
course.
mind, which I really wanted to share with the audience, because that's another thing. That's the third thing I tend to find during the audits, that who draft the process, the procedure, that person should be qualified first to do that. So if I have, let's say, a senior regulatory associate or regulatory manager, if they don't have quality experience, then they should not draft, a quality department related process, or as a matter of fact, for example, pharmacovigilance related process. And they should have knowledge on the process. So they should know the big puzzle, the big picture of that process, because I've seen procedures drafted by people who had literally nothing to do with the other department. And these are two key rules set out within Neutral X as well, that you have to have knowledge and you have to be qualified to do that type of procedure, drop the procedure. And yeah, so that was the little detail I wanted to add, which is not that little because it's really important. So sorry, please go on.
Oh, good. You are my guest today. So yeah, thank you, Erika. And of course, I want to mention as well that the discussion that we had before on different events on LinkedIn as well. So yeah, the network is really a magic thing, and we learn from each other. So this is very important, and I can advise all our colleagues, all our the people involved in different areas, but in drug safety and pharmacovigilance, as we did before when we worked on the office. Hopefully, we'll be back to the office as well. So yeah, to learn from each other and learn from colleagues and from experienced persons. So we have from Sultana. Good afternoon from Houston, Texas, the US. Jihan, say hello from Montreal.
Hi there.
To all pharmacists around the world, happy Pharmacist Day from Mushtaq. Thank you.
Happy Pharmacist Day, Omar.
It was yesterday, the 25th September. Good afternoon from Flower Moon from Dallas, Texas. Good day from Ontario, Canada, from Michael. Iqdam, hello from Baghdad, from Iraq. So we are around the world. From Montreal, also from Avery. The first question, and it's from Iman, from our friend Iman from Boston, from the US. Can you please explain more the cheat sheets?
Oh gosh. What would you like to hear, Iman? So these cheat sheets. Oh, how would I be able to describe it? Feel free, Omar, to pitch in. So basically, how we are doing it, it's kind of a step-by-step guide, really something similar like working instruction, but working instructions are on a higher level. if I can put it into perspective, it's a bit on a higher level. When you have a cheat sheet, basically it's out of the QMS system. You have it usually, and you share it with your team, your colleagues, your department, and that would describe like the step by step what comes after which step, into really detailed description where you are clicking it, if that's the case. Or you can have a cheat sheet for example, for medical information. What type of questions triggers what type of answers? So you're looking it up, you see that you had, okay, this question falls into that category. I know we are a little bit going from pharmacovigilance to medical information, but it's just like an example. Yeah, go ahead, Omar.
Yeah, just Iman said and added that she wants to know about the content of those cheat sheets. Thank you, Iman.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it really depends on you, what process you want to introduce and which step you want to further detail for your team. So I can imagine for everything and anything. I don't know what your experience is with the job aid/cheat sheet, Omar.
Yeah, the job aids or jobs aid that we are usually sometimes when we need more details about the process, someone within the team is volunteer to make just to a document to explain documents that we can use usually that explain some process, how to make a data entry, how to make with the same information that we can find on SOPs, on work instructions. But yeah, what I asked this question before, and I guess that Iman asked the same, is that those documents are not, as you mentioned as well, are out of the QMS. And you as auditor, are you looking for that? Is it a finding for you, or that you ignore them, you don't look at them, and you look just at the official quality documents in the QMS?
I think it depends on the auditor as well. I've seen these naughty, nitty-picky colleagues who can do that. They cannot make it as a finding, but they will have their comments there. And there are also those auditors who says, only QMS system. What is outside, your responsibility. So they don't necessarily looking at it. I think maybe it is, the truth lies in between, because if you see that the process is really smooth and there are no problems, there are no deviations open in regards to that process. So you know that the people who are taking care of it, they take care of it well, then I would not necessarily bring it up at all. But if I see that the process has many deviations for some reason, I would actually ask, sniff around a little bit. Do you have a cheat sheet maybe in place? Or what can help and aid that person for that procedure? If yes, okay, can I see it? Because maybe something is wrong there, maybe some information captured incorrectly. And I would make a recommendation there. But it can only be a recommendation. I cannot officially make anything else on it, like a finding, because it's not the part of the QMS system.
Okay. Good. Other questions? Thank you.
I hope we answered.
Yeah, we have a long question from our friend
Oh.
Viva from Bay Area, from California. I have seen the AE or adverse event collection policy in place at big pharma with marketed products. I have not seen this AE policy with smaller companies that are in early phase studies. Do you recommend the small company or small companies create an AE collection policy?
If Vivian mentions that it's an early phase study, I would say that it's clinical trials. At least this is what I associate immediately, rather than pharmacovigilance. So for clinical studies, you have to collect AEs. Whether it's kind of not a choice; it's mandatory to do it. So for clinical studies, I would not necessarily worry about that. But again, that's my subjective. I really would like to emphasize that don't take it as like it's written in stone and no one will ever have a finding because let's say you've heard this here at this session, because there are many auditors out there, and we follow the regulations, but there are also some guys who are really nitty picky, and there are some others who is more relaxed. I would, if you have clinical studies, that's basically defined in your ICSR processing, that you have to capture adverse events. It is defined in the clinical SOPs. It is defined in the protocol. So I would not necessarily worry about it. Would you
Perfect.
agree, Omar? Or I'm here not necessarily.
Yes, yeah. I agree
I'm
that
lazy here.
I agree that there's different, not opinions, but way to do from different auditors, and they can pick that, of course. But as you mentioned, also that there's no choice within clinical studies for the collection of the SAEs, and it's mandatory as well. Yeah. So thank you. The next question is from Sultana. Can you advise about some very simple, basic, and standard SOPs and other documents from those for those new professionals in PV, in pharmacovigilance and drug safety?
I was really afraid that someone will ask that. I was, because what I would say that there is no document which fits all. You know, like you cannot have a shoe which fits all size.
Yeah.
When you are developing the SOPs or working instructions or policies, you can have a frame set out what you use, but you really have to know, and this is why you have to have an experienced person who writes it, as I mentioned, qualified and knowledgeable about the procedure, because then they will know what to modify and how to modify if they are using a really generalized template, and what information is missing and they need to add it. So what I would say, that if someone is completely new to pharmacovigilance, please shadow senior people
Yeah.
and try to learn as much as possible. Have great courses. Omar is holding really great courses, so
Thank
don't be
you.
afraid. Invest in your development in pharmacovigilance or any other fields. And I think that when you consume enough knowledge, you will be able to see through those generalized templates what you need to delete, what is not applicable for you, where you need to add. But there is still a journey there to reach that. If someone at the really, really beginning would have given me like a generalized template, I think my eyes would have opened like quite big. So it's really important to invest time and see how other people are doing it, so you learn from it. That's my advice to new people.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Thank you, Erica. The next question. Thanks, Dr. Omar and Erica, from such valuable presentation, and happy Pharmacist Day. So we have more pharmacists here. Kishan,
Oh, the
or
previous one.
yeah,
The previous guest. I
the
watched that
previous
one.
guest.
It was a great podcast.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Kishan, for all the advice.
thank you. And Kishan asked, obviously, and with as with the other questions, are relevant as well. Erica and Dr. Omar, great information throughout. One quick question. I underlined the quick question. What is your stand on having child documents, example work instructions, under the SOPs to distribute details in multiple layers versus the practice of just having lengthy SOPs covering everything in single document? What has worked out better for you and those you have audited?
Again, subjective announcement. I need to emphasize it. I cannot emphasize it enough. I believe that it's easier to have a good, strong SOP. What I would say that it can be between 10 and 20 pages. It depends on the process. So obviously, a signal management SOP will be a lot longer than, let's say, the role of a qualified person for pharmacovigilance, just for demonstrational purposes.
Yes.
So I would say that having a strong SOP and then having working instruction next to it is better from my point of view, because it breaks down, if I need to do the process, the first part of the process, this is where I'm going with working instruction. If I need to describe the second part of the process, I'm going there. So it's not massive overburdening a 30-40 pages long document, which is madness. And also the legislation recognizes these three, so policies, standard operating procedures, and working instructions. So I like to advise to my clients, and to everyone in this field, stick with the legislation, what they offer, because sometimes I've seen different, how can I say, different nomenclature. They called it completely different, and that caused confusion, because the way how they called it means another thing as well. So I usually advise stick with the legislative names and what they recognize, rather than just going bold and this is what we are going to implement however we plan it.
Yeah,
You can spare a lot of headaches.
Yeah, I think that there's no more better that to stick with the, as you mentioned, with the regulation, and to be compliant. The compliance is our word that we we wake up the morning, and we end the day with. So thank you, Erica, for this wonderful answer. The next question are from Mida Ijaz. Are there any certifications required to be an auditor? So to be like you,
Yes.
how can one become SOP writer if he or she is new to PV?
With the second part, I would go first with the second part, because I'm referring back to the ladies. There was a lady who asked something similar.
Yeah.
How you can become an SOP writer is learn from your seniors, learn from courses if you can, invest in yourself in this area, and never stop the learning. It never stops, because our field is really, as I mentioned, it evolves, so you will always have some new things to read. There are plenty of articles also available on pharmacovigilance on different processes, thank God, because 10 years ago we didn't have this much of materials, and now I'm really happy to see that there are a lot of good stuff out there. So never stop self-improving, and then slowly, when you feel that you have a solid knowledge on some processes, because you don't need to be a kind of a polyhister, like knowing about everything in depth, but steps one process, two processes, three processes. And then I would say, and I would recommend what my team colleagues are doing. They come to me and they ask whether they can shadow me in this process, whether they can participate, help out, maybe one step, maybe several steps, maybe a full things. So don't, I would say, don't be afraid to go out and ask that you would like to participate in that, and you learn. That would be the second part of the question. The first part, yeah, there is a certificate. There are international auditor bodies. Basically, they put together the course for yourself, for auditors, potential auditors, and you can go just basically going through. You will have exercises, you will have tests. What I really love, we also had tests. I must admit, I was like super duper lucky because I have two amazing auditor mentors, like really amazing ones. um, and yeah, there, I know in the industry there are other people who spend, let's say, 16, 17, 20 years within the industry. So they are doing auditing services as well. So I would not necessarily say that it's not possible without a certificate, but it definitely helps to become an auditor, because there are other skills. Once you will sit at the other side of the table, because I used to be the auditing, it's different and what you expect and how I think. So you can do it without the certificate, but I would encourage to get a certificate because you can learn a lot, especially if you have really good mentors there. Um, yeah, that would be my answer. Hope
Yeah,
I helped.
yeah, good. And I like what you when you emphasize and uh, talk and again about the professional development. It's very important, as you mentioned as well, that the pharmacovigilance since 10 years in 2010 is not the same. Now we are talking about big data, real world data, about artificial intelligence, about something, yeah, and also the regulation involved, the EMA regulation, or European Medicine Agency, the US FDA regulation, the combination products. So yeah, there's a lot of things that are evolving, and as professionals, uh, new or also with experience, we have to develop our skills and to update our knowledge, and also having mentors. It's very important to guide us, to show us shortcuts as well, to avoid because it time consuming as well to
Yeah,
be developed, to attend the different conferences. There's a World Drug Safety Conference,
in
yeah,
Amsterdam.
in Amsterdam next month, and in Boston as well. So the chance also, it's now that with the new era, we have webinars as well. So yeah, and social media. So yeah, the professional development is very important, and connections. We have also LinkedIn as an amazing professional network. So we learn a lot as well.
Yeah, and you know, the other thing is that, for example, when you're really unsure about something, you are facing a situation you've never seen, and you know, you are looking up all the regulations and trying to dig in. Okay, I have the solution, but you just have this little devil sitting on your shoulder saying, but are you sure that this is the right way?
Yeah,
So this is really important to have mentors, because once you have it, you can always pop the question that, look, this is what I found. So you do your own research. You are like not waiting there like, okay, please give me the answer, but I did my research, this is what I found, this is the situation, I'm unsure about it. Am I on the right track? And then, they can shape it. they can tell you, yeah, I do agree with you because A, B, C, D, E, whatever. And then they can say, look, it doesn't necessarily make sense to me because, X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yes.
definitely mentors. Huge
Definitely,
shout
and
out to
also
them.
to be to be involved as well in societies like ISOP. We have
Yeah,
wonderful fellow members in ISOP, like you do, also on TAPRA and PIPA as well. I'm not involved in PIPA, but I know that there's amazing colleagues involved there in the UK and in Europe. So yeah, and as I mentioned, also different conferences and attending webinars. There's free webinars, and now the information is coming to us.
yeah,
Before that, and before that, we go to the information and to look for the information.
yeah.
Thank you, Erika. Other questions? We try to pull different questions, but yeah, Palak is from Raleigh, from North Carolina. Mostly our audience mostly are from the US and Canada, but as well from Europe and Middle East. Would you please let me know where do I begin if I'm interested to get myself ICS? I don't know what is ICS.
Yeah.
ICS certified as a PV auditor or as a PQS lead auditor.
I'm unsure about the ICS. Maybe it was ISO. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I must
Palak,
admit.
if you can just yeah,
Clarify.
verify what ICS stands for, and we will go back to come back to I'll go back to your question.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. The other question, waiting on Palak to yeah. So Palak, I'm currently working as a PV specialist and willing to switch to the PV auditor position. Any tips on how I should start? I think that this same question that we have, but if you
Yeah.
have you want to add something, please go ahead.
I think I talked enough about that. So just I can say the same thing what I did before. I would
Yeah.
not necessarily repeat myself and bore the audience.
Perfect. Jihan from Montreal. What skills does it take to be? But skills we already uh, uh, discuss about how to be SOP writer. But Jihan has a tricky question about the skills. What skills does it take to become SOP writer? Thanks. Thank you, Jihan.
Be meticulous. So
Yeah.
that's really important. The attention to details. So that I would say. What are the skills? Knowledge.
Yeah.
Because that's the key skill to it. You have to be knowledgeable on that topic, on that area, what you are writing about the SOP. So attention to details, and be flexible. I would also say be flexible, and I think one of the reasons, because this we have not touched it, and I would definitely want to give a few words that you can have interdepartmental SOPs, which means that product quality complaint, that is a little bit interdepartmental because it's really true that quality does the heavy job. But if it is coupled with an adverse event, you have the pharmacovigilance department also involved. So you have to have like a communication channel. And those bit, which is relevant to the pharmacovigilance department, you should always make sure that the other department as well are happy. At least it not necessarily has to be perfect because nothing can be perfect.
Yeah.
When you're drafting an SOP, it's basically impossible to fulfill every comment, everyone's need.
Agree.
But you have to be flexible to a little bit give in, so the other department will give in as well, and you reach somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
So you are kind of like diplomatic there. So I would say flexible and patience, because when there is a review and what comments sometimes you can get back, you really need patience there. So I would say patience too.
Yeah. What about the quality knowledge? Uh,
That's an interesting thing, because what I see that people, they aware of the quality part, but they not aware that they are aware of the quality part
yeah.
unless they start to see the bigger picture, and they also evolve, and they will realize that, yeah, they were aware, they just didn't know that that's the quality part. So it's kind of like built in. At least this is what I've seen.
Yeah.
I'm sure that other people have other experience there,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah.
I see there's discussions currently on the comments between Kishan and Vivan. So yeah, and I will be happy also one day to um, to invite Vivan as our one of our guests as well. Palak said I meant IQC certification.
Yeah.
Apologize for the typo.
That's the no worries. We just need to make sure that we know what we are talking about. So yeah, there are institutions. I think if you type in Google, there is a big center, um, like IRCA and CQA and these type of things. You will find plenty of information, and then you can look up some local institution who are certified to do that.
Perfect.
And yeah, they should hold lessons, and yeah, you can attend if you wish. Obviously it's not free, but yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Sultana again ask, can you advise us about any good links for all these PV documents, resources, please? Or I think that SOPs are internal and
Yeah,
for
yeah.
every company. Maybe if I'm so sorry, Sultana, but maybe you meant or if I can rephrase the question, uh, um, tools to write SOPs or SOPs templates, if we can find that, or guidance, or yeah, to how to write SOPs.
To be perfectly fair, I'm sure that something is out there on the internet, but I've never researched in depth because I started when it was in a, let's say, baby shoeish, so there was not necessarily such a wide network and webinar and all those knowledge and things on the internet. So I learned in the old-fashioned way, as I mentioned, shadowing seniors, understanding processes, gathering the knowledge, sucking into all the knowledge what I could put my hands on, and then yeah. So regarding general templates, I think what we were talking about, if you had a pen and pencil there, what is really important to have a purpose, to have a roles and responsibilities clearly defined, the process itself, version history, for example, included, so what you modified here and there. These are all a little key aspect which should be considered during a template development. But again, it depends on what type of product portfolio you have and what are the resources of your company. And then, you can add the other bits and pieces there, how you would like to have that template. But companies usually develop it by themselves rather than what I've also know, if I'm not mistaken, there are some consultancies out there that they are drafting a general high level of an SOP for yourself, and then you can shape it. So it's also a possibility. But yeah, so that would be a service what a PV vendor would offer and bring to your company.
Yeah, and the knowledge of the activities, the deep knowledge of what happened in pharmacovigilance department, to know the tricky things and the details. And yeah, of course, that if you want to audit, to check, to yeah, this activities, you might and you should have the knowledge of what happened, of what happens, and what are the details of this activity. And I think that it helps also to audit and to ask questions and to check everything with yeah, during the audit. Vivan, again, she add, sheet sheets are nice, but they are very tricky, because if a person made the cheat sheet on their own, it now becomes an opinion and know the source for truth.
I see the truth in it. It can happen. This is why it's good to keep the balance.
Yeah.
So, for example, for my team, when there is a cheat sheet development, someone usually takes the lead, but there is always the possibility for the others to comment on it and agree and disagree with it. So then, if you can back it up, why you think something is incorrect, so there is, a legislative piece behind it, then then from then on, it's not necessarily an opinion anymore, but again, putting it back to the right direction. So yeah, I see, and I really agree, it can happen that it becomes an opinion. But as I mentioned, if you have a team and they are working on it, so people's voice are heard, then and they are knowledgeable about the process, then you can keep it under control.
Good. Different opinions under the sun, one from Europe and one from California. Thank you for this back and forth. Alan, one of our successful graduate from the QPDS course and qualified professional from drug safety and pharmacovigilance, has the pandemic affect the process of drafting and updating SOPs? As we may know, also, I think we are working from home mostly. If yes, how has it changed? Also, as you mentioned, companies don't usually have a solid business continuity plan in place. Has the pandemic started a change in this direction?
Oh, such a complex question.
So we have three questions in one. Has the pandemic affected the process
I like
of
it.
process?
Three in one, efficient. Yeah. That's an interesting thing. I don't necessarily believe that the pandemic has an effect on the SOP writing and update. I don't necessarily think. It might be different with other companies. As, yeah, again, subjective. This is subjective opinions. You guys hear subjective opinions. For us, it didn't really, because you have an author and the author is taking care of the drafting. Then it goes, usually for review. You have the reviewers put down for each SOPs, their area of expertise. You can have a secondary reviewer as well, because let's say that the process is such complex, like signal management, that you would need more pair of eyes, not just like one. And then if there is anything major, let's say, but not even major, just you want to put the team together, you can always have a Teams call. There were people saying that, oh my God, it's just not the same. But at least from my experience, my team works really well. We can have team calls, we can have discussion, just as like we would have in the office. So For us, it did not necessarily had a huge impact on it, but I can understand that there are some other companies which would prefer to have, like, a face-to-face in conversation rather than via Teams, because they like that better, they prefer that way better, or they can express themselves in a better way like that. So it can have, I can see the possibility having effect. For me, I we don't my team doesn't feel it, so we still quite dynamic. If there is anything, we can always ring each other. We can we also put some meetings to discuss that procedure, this procedure. Okay, we have a list what SOPs are due for review. So it can be dynamic, and it can be a little bit, bumpy, but it also comes down on your team as well. I believe the people you have, within the team, and how they are able to work together.
Good. Also, as you mentioned, companies don't usually have a solid business continuity plan or BCP in place. Has the pandemic started a change in that direction?
I think that there are some people running around like, oh my God, what are we supposed to do? Because we don't have a procedure. We have no idea what's happening and how to deal with it.
Yeah.
I'm like 170% sure that happened in a couple of places. So yeah, I think that those companies start to improve on it, because now they see the need, the necessity, the severity not having it. So they are now trying to fix it. So yeah,
Perfect.
that's there.
So Kishan is adding. Thank you, Alan. Thank you for your question, and thank you, Erica, for your uh, your uh, your answers and questions. Kishan said that he's talking to Vivan. Kishan is based in Chicago, Vivan in California, and Erica in I like that. I like that. The power of technology. And Erica is in we can say,
Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
in under the sun in Barcelona,
At
uh,
the
in,
moment.
in Spain. So you are really lucky. Vivan Kishan say Vivan exactly. That's why I have seen a lot of findings from regulators where such sheets. I think that he's mentioned about talking about cheat sheets provide crucial instructions, but then they remain uncontrolled as they are not formally incorporated in the QMS. Something avoid for sure.
Yeah.
Perfect. So you seem to be agree. And
Yeah.
Vivan say, yes, clinical trials, early phase studies. Thank you for your response. Was very helpful. AAAE or adverse event collection is defined in the protocols. Thank you, Vivan.
Thank you.
Sultana, again, and thank you for your active participation, Sultana. Can we have voluntary experience or internship offered at companies to pursue a career in PV?
Definitely. Definitely. I would say. I'm not entirely sure about every country, but I know that both in Ireland and UK, you can definitely do that. We have a lovely fella. He started as an intern, and he's great. He's great, and now he's with us for good. We are not letting him go. So yeah, you can do it. Try to. That's actually a really good question, where you could look that up, because I'm unsure where you can find relevant information. But the possibility, I believe that it's
Yeah,
there.
agree 100%.
Then in Canada too.
Yeah, as well. Safa, finally, someone from Paris, from France. Thank you for you and your guest for these valuable insights, Dr. Omar. Could you please give more information about type of SOPs and quality document for a CRO contract research organization working with different clients?
Well, I would say what the legislation sets out. So you should have policies in place. What we were talking about. Then you should have standard operating procedures in place. Just because you have different client, it doesn't mean that you don't follow the same process. You can follow different processes, but you can also follow the same process if the product portfolio, for example, is really similar.
Yeah.
Obviously, when I would conduct literature, let's say, I would, now it's again just hypothetical for demonstrational purposes. If I have client A and they are a generic, I might have a different process for there. And then if I have client B who is advanced therapies, I might have a wider, more complex literature screening in place. So in this way, you would have to separate depending on the product portfolio. But also you can follow the same thing if it's detailed enough, if it's robust enough, then why not to have one? So I see that it can go both ways to have. And then the working instructions in place. That's I think it's really handy because, as I mentioned, that's kind of the step by step where I'm going, what software I'm using. So these are the 3 types of documents, what I would say, for you to include in your QMS system. And then there are the other important documents as quality manuals, etc., what you have in place. But that's not anymore pharmacovigilance, so I wouldn't go there.
And when Safa, so I let just in between for the second question from Safa, when she mentioned CROs, so there's a partnership, and a question even I know the half of the answer. It came on in my mind the SDEAs, or safety data exchange agreement. Are they part of the QMS? Because CROs have different clients, and there's SDEAs.
Yes, they would definitely be, because those are legal documents. So, and they are also version controlled. They have a template. You have really important responsibilities described there. So definitely they are auditable documents. We love to look into them. I must admit, my recent due diligence, I had so many SDAs, and I was reading through, and I needed to, note down what are the deficiencies here and there and there and there. So definitely.
Thank you. Any recommendation for the certification for PV auditor? And I think that it will be the last question as we hit the record, as we are we see and we receive your passion, your smile, Erica, your beautiful smile, just make us forget the time as we hit the record. We are at 1 hour and 30 minutes talking about in this webinar. It was the last question from Sultana about PV auditor and any advices.
I would definitely recommend something internationally recognized that I think they would give a good solid knowledge on it. So something like, as I mentioned, like IRCA, just type it in, and you will find plenty of information there and links, and then you can explore the world. Having Google, it's our good friend there. And the other thing is just to reflect. If you are in a good company like yourself, Omar, time just flies. And when it's our passion. So definitely. I really do enjoy it. I would be able to continue.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you. I will just finish as usually with this with the webinar before thanking you and the audience by sharing the drug safety and pharmacovigilance course. Just as a reminder that in international innovigilance, inno like innovation and vigilance for pharmacovigilance, international academy that they provide a well recognized course in drug safety and pharmacovigilance, a job ready course with basics, with regulation, worldwide regulation, with PV operations and organization and knowledge in drug induced disease. And let's say also the database training as causality assessment, medical information, different, and of course also about PSMF, quality audit and inspections, risk management, the risk, signal management, aggregate reporting, writing, a job ready, along with update of resume and mock interview for drug safety and pharmacovigilance roles and positions. There's also you will be welcomed into the pharmacovigilance network and group, and we are really happy to spread this knowledge and information. They will also be part of the American Society of Pharmacovigilance for a free membership for the first year as well.
I
So
need to join.
yeah,
I
definitely,
need to join.
you're welcome. You're most welcome. Just visit www.innovigilance.com, and of course follow us and follow Innovigilance on LinkedIn page, on Facebook. There's also the first and the only pharmacovigilance club on Clubhouse, with the weekly room with different moderators, as you saw, Mariam, Vivan, Kishan, and a lot of knowledge, a lot of learnings on Clubhouse in a weekly room every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. I mean Eastern time in North America. Thank you, thank you for sharing knowledge. Thank you for your for the sun you share with us. Thank you for your beautiful smile, Erica. And hopefully I will see you next in different events. And you're welcome for another webinar, passionate webinar.
Definitely. I would really like to give a big shout out. Thank you so much, Omar, having me here. I really, really enjoyed it. I also would like to thank the audience having all
Yeah.
these questions. Yeah, and I hope that everyone will stay healthy and happy and safe. And yeah, see you in October, because we will hopefully meet at the conference.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you for the audience and our followers. Thank you very much. Have a nice day and a nice weekend as well.
Cheers, everyone.